now. Let's return to the Victorian by-elections over the weekend. It has been a shocking result for Labor. This is panicking the Albanese government as well. And I'm joined now by Sky News host Steve Price and Joe Hildebrand. Great to see you both.
Good evening.
As always on a Monday. Steve, you know, seats like Werribee, these are safe Labor seats. This is traditional Labor heartland. So what do you think this means at both the state and federal level?
Well, I think it's much more than just local issues. I think it really is a reflection on how the Labor brand has been so trashed in Victoria by Daniel Andrews and now by Jacinda Allen, that the people voting in these electorates don't see the big difference between state government and federal government. I mean, let's quickly talk about Werribee. I mean, Werribee has been held by the former Treasurer Tim Pallas for 10 years. Tim Pallas is the bloke who was the Treasurer in Victoria and wrecked the economy. And that area around Werribee used to be farmland. It's now carpet bombed with houses, you know, built right next to one another in suburbs that have got no infrastructure. There's no parks, there's no trees, there's one-lane roads in and out of that place. And so people sit in their cars, Sharri and Joe, for up to an hour, hour and a half, just to get out onto the freeway. And so they were never going to support Labor. I mean, Labor looks like it'll sneak back in, but only on Green preferences. And when you talk about the seat in Chapel Street of Prahran, I mean, Tony Lupton, the former Labor politician who held that seat until 10 years ago, he stood as an independent. And what did he do? He announced 2 weeks ago that he was going to put the Greens last on his how to vote card. And he said that there has been a 30% swing against the Greens. And the reason why people turned on the Greens in that seat, and I know it well because I lived there, was because he kept talking about how they had been turned into a radical extremist party. He said 70% of the reactions that he got about the Greens were what they were saying about Palestine.
Yeah, he really campaigned on anti-Semitism. Joe, and you've corrected me. I was saying Prahran. You're saying I'm saying
Prahran, love. It's Prahran.
I'm saying
Prahran, but everyone else says Prahran. That's why. That's how you can distinguish between a Melburnian and anyone from any of these out of towners.
So apologies for that mispronunciation.
He's right.
So Joe, this area, you know, again, Adam Bant, his seat of Melbourne at a federal level covers the same ground. There's also a bit of Kooyong in there as well. So you'd think that the Green are going to struggle federally, and with their preferences flowing to Labor, this is going to be worrying the Albanese government, no question.
1,000%. Well, Prahran is one of those entirely sort of obnoxious greeny tealy seats where everyone is very, with Steve accepted, of course, but which is very, very affluent. It can afford to vote purely on values, and of course they had very, nice, shiny, progressive Green values when they swung to the Greens about 10 years ago. And suddenly, when the Greens' true colours show on an issue as visceral as Israel and Palestine, and it turns out the Greens are actually a bunch of knuckle-dragging extremists, then suddenly this seat, which again has a very high Jewish population, it would be near the hotland of sort of Caulfield, which is in Macnamara, where Josh Burns' seat is around, and of course other seats like Kooyong as well, that suddenly these guys go, oh my God, our local member hates us, hates our people, wants to wipe our homeland from the map. So I am not surprised at all that Israel was a huge issue there, and the former member who ran as an independent was a key factor in the Greens' downfall, and good on him. Werribee, the betrayal is actually twofold, because not only was Tim Pallas the Treasurer, but Tim Pallas was the most senior member of the Victorian right. And it's always been the right of the Labor Party that has represented and represented well outer suburban, working class, often very migrant heavy, multicultural, real sort of struggle street seats, instead of, again, these inner city affluent seats that bang on and on about, whatever it is, climate change and, gender and whatever. He defected from the right to the left so he could hold on to his job as
things that Joe normally bangs on about. That sort of thing.
Never. I'm all about the worker. I'm the worker. But he actually defected from the right to the left when Alan became Premier, presumably to hold onto his job, then decides he's just going to bugger off anyway, or maybe he got tapped, and now that seat is holding on for the fight of its life. So. Well done to the Victorian Labor left. Another big win. Good on you guys.
Well, anyway, the results were good on the weekend and very positive for hopefully the Greens being decimated in the upcoming federal election. Now, this is a bit of fun. The Sydney Morning Herald editor, Bevan Shields, picked a fight with UFC Chief Executive Dana White, writing in a scathing piece on the weekend, which was subtly titled, "Watching Our Premier Chat to UFC Boss Dana White Made Me Feel Physically Sick." Well, Dana White hit back. Have a look.
Listen, for a place that is so tough and the people, everything on land and the water can kill you. You have the biggest I've ever seen in the media in my life. I saw a story where a guy was like, I saw Dana do a podcast with the Premier and it physically made me sick. Holy you guys have to have the biggest of all time in the media here. I thought we had weak media. You guys win hands down.
The UFC may not be genteel enough for the Herald's readers, but, you know, Steve, millions of people around the world love the UFC. It's on in my house all the time. My husband loves it, or every Sunday at least. So, you know, this also is an economic boost to the New South Wales economy. And why should one sport in particular be excluded?
Well, it just shows you how out of touch those 9 newspapers are. I mean, this bloke, you know, he's banging on 2 weeks ago saying he was going to open an office in Parramatta for some 2 journalists, I think, to go and stay out there and report on the Greater Western Sydney. Man, seriously? I mean, Parramatta's not even the centre of Sydney anymore. It's even gone further west. And he's also had a crack at cricket, this guy. Now, how someone so out of touch with what ordinary average Australians like to see for entertainment should not be running a daily newspaper. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, maybe he's in touch with the Herald readers. Maybe he is. Joe, but I thought it was funny about Peter Fitzsimons. You know, he also criticised the UFC, but he wrote, according to the Australian's media section today, he wrote a book on boxing. Boxing's no less,
look,
it's about as violent as the UFC.
Yeah, look, Bevan Shields is a lovely bloke. He's very genteel. He's very urbane. I'm not surprised that UFC isn't his thing, and I doubt it would be most Sydney Morning Herald readers' thing either. But no, it's not really my cup of tea, to be honest. But I think whatever floats your boat, you know, if you enjoy it, if people are all doing it voluntarily, that's fantastic. You know, some of the best writers in the world, not necessarily Fitz, but like Norman Mailer, you know, write about boxing as this incredible high art form. I haven't been able to perceive that myself when I've seen, you know, Anthony Mundine swinging in there, but maybe it is there. But I think, you know, I don't see why we have to impose, like, surely if we've learned anything in the 21st century, it's just go and do what you want to do. You don't have the right to tell other people what they can and can't say, can and can't believe, can and can't watch. Just let freedom reign.
Yeah, absolutely.
With no rules and a cage.
Yeah, with no rules in a cage, exactly. All right. I think we're out of time. Steve Price, Joe Hudebrand, thank you both so much.
Always a pleasure. See you soon.